Hi everybody and welcome to the Grianaig Creations Podcast. This is episode 54. My name is Kirsty and I am coming to you from the west coast of Scotland. You can find me on Instagram as Grianaig_Creations and you can find me on Ravelry as little-b. There is also the Ravelry group, which is the Grianaig Creations Podcast. And you can search for that in the groups tab within Ravelry or in the forums tab as well. So, it has been a while since I last recorded. It's been roughly about 4, if not possibly 5 weeks. I have recorded little snippets within the last month. I'm going to include at the end. But just to kind of kick off this episode, I do want to announce that this is my 4-year Podiversary, which is amazing. So just want to say a huge thank you to anyone that has stuck with me for the last 4 years, and to a thank you for everyone for stopping by and watching this episode, or any of my episodes for that matter. So I'm going to jump in and start this by saying I do have a new camera. And there's a screen at the top that I keep trying not to look at. I'm also looking at it to see if it tells me how much battery I have left, because I did see that it only had one wee box left in the battery, so it'll be quite interesting to see how this goes. But yes, just going to kick off this episode by starting with some news for the next year coming up, and that is that I have 2 sort of make-alongs going. One is a knit-along and the other is a general make-along for any crafter. So we'll start with the big one. We've got the 2020 stash bust, which is a stash bust to use any yarn in your stash that you purchased before the 1st of January 2020. So you could have bought it on the 31st of December and it will still count. But anything from the 1st of January 2020 and anything else into the next year will not count in the stash. So the stash bust is taking place over on my Ravelry group, which is why I said at the start where you can find the Ravelry group. And basically what I'm asking people to do is either have their Ravelry stash up to date, which I don't, hold my hand up right now, it's never been something I've done. A few friends, Aileen in particular, have tried to get me to update it, and it's just not for me. So what I have done, and what a couple of other people are doing, is we've pulled out our stash and we've taken like a big photo of the stash. So it's like one of my pictures has at least like 30 skeins of yarn in it. So I'll put a couple of examples in for you to have a look at to see if it's something you would want to do. Or whether it's more your thing to just have your Ravelry stash up to date. The stash bust is not going to be going on meterage, it's going to be going on the cakes of yarn that you use, or the weight of yarn you use if you want to be more specific. Because some people never really use the full skein, so you can't say you've used the full skein if you've only used 50% of it. Unless you've then thrown that 50% out or gifted it to somebody, it wouldn't count as a full skein. So, excuse me a second. Good old iron brew. So we're going on how much yarn you use. So is it 1 cake of yarn, skein, ball, whatever, or is it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Or if you want to be really specific, you can weigh how much yarn you had before you started the project and how much yarn you have at the end of the project. There are 2 threads in the Ravelry group for this. One is more of a chatter thread and one is the pictures side of things. So the before pictures, the during pictures and the after pictures. So that's where you'll find that information. On the back of that, my friend Deborah of the Physicist of a Farm Gal podcast, she is also running a stash down, which is basically the same thing as a stash bust, and she is also doing a cal next year, whether that's KAL or CAL, She's also doing one where you use patterns that you've purchased before 2020, which I think is amazing. So I'm definitely going to be taking part in that, and I'm also going to be double dipping because in my stash bust there's no, I'm not eligible for prizes, but there are prizes up for grabs. Excuse me, shouldn't have drank fizzy juice. But in hers I can certainly double dip and I might be eligible for something. If she's doing prizes, she might not, but she's certainly doing something really good, which is using up stash and using up patterns that you've already purchased or been given, gifted, free patterns, as long as it's in your library, whether that's your Ravelry library or your physical copy. As long as you have had it before 2020, it is counted? No, that's not English. It is counted in her. I'm going to go with cow. But yeah, I think that's most of the admin news. My friend Ellen might be doing a stash bust, but she's doing hers via Instagram, so I'm not really sure in the details. I'll certainly message her and ask her so that I can include it in the next podcast. But yeah, I don't have too much in the way of showing off today. I do have a clip of a finished item I'm going to put in when the time comes, because I don't have it here. I also don't have another of my finished items because I just gifted it. It is Christmas after all. It is Christmas Day, and yes, I am recording on Christmas Day because my poor mother has a very bad migraine and has been horrendously sick this morning. My dad is chilling in the back room, and I thought, what better way to record, what better way to pass my time by recording a podcast and getting up for my Podiversary. So judge me if you want, considering it's Christmas Day, but I don't care. So technically I have 2 finished items to show off, but I have 2 others I have done that are finished and have been given to their recipients. The one I'm about to show off still has all of its ends to be woven in, but I am over the moon to say that I have finally, I'm just going to try and tuck some of the ends in. I have finally finished these colourwork bins. So this is the first one, still tucking in ends, because there's quite a few ends for this. And then this is the second one. On camera these look amazing, but in person I think I put the wrong colours in the wrong places. So these are the backs, they have thumbs. They are completely finished apart from ends needing to be woven in and maybe a wee blocking. I also need to weave in the thumbs because it didn't tell you to pick up any extra stitches, so I didn't do it. And there's a wee gap. I say wee, it's quite sizable. So that's my first finished object. I will put the name of the project somewhere. Because, excuse me, I really shouldn't have drank fizzy juice because I left the booklet in my room and that's got all the pattern information. But it's the same one that I've been talking about for a couple of months now. And the other one is my first ever hat project where I have held, well, first ever project where I've held double with mohair. So this is actually, if you look at the halo at the top here, you can see, I might not show with my hand, yeah, you can see the halo just up here. This is the first project I've ever done where I've held it with mohair. I'm not completely against it, not completely for it either, because I occasionally found myself not getting both strands of yarn with my stitch. So I would correct it if I spotted it, but I don't always watch or look at my knitting, so there might be a few stitches where I didn't catch the mohair. I could feel when I hadn't caught the fingering weight yarn, but I couldn't always feel if I hadn't caught the mohair. So I kind of made this hat up. It's a little bit snug for my head. I have quite a big head, so I might gift this to somebody. But I kind of made it up, and I certainly made up the decreases. But it's also designed to be a slouch hat, or to have the brim rolled up and be a still a little bit slouchy, but more of a beanie. So I'm not opposed to holding mohair with a fingering weight, but it's not my favourite thing in the world. So that was interesting as well. So those are my only two finished objects that I can show. The other finished object was a pair of undercurrent socks that's my pattern. You can find the undercurrent pattern on Ravelry. I'll put the link to that down below. I had made my mum a couple of pairs of socks for her Christmas. That was what she asked for. One of the pairs I made are the undercurrent socks in a sock blank. And I got those finished, ends woven in and everything for her Christmas. And the other finished object I do have a clip for because I'm just so proud of it, and I will insert that right here. Hi guys, I'm jumping on to record a wee something before I actually sit down to record a proper podcast, so this is Kirsty from the past. I am jumping on to show you something that I have finished, and the reason I'm recording this before I record a podcast is because I have to take the finished object into work tomorrow to give to the person who ordered him. So a wee bit of backstory. I don't work in the office anymore, as a lot of you may know, and I got contacted by one of the guys that used to be in my team, and he was wondering on behalf of his team leader if I knew somebody that would be able to make or had already made a certain crochet figure. And I was just like, I was really, because obviously I've been in the business, I've seen the side of things, I know how long things take to make. I knew for a fact that anybody that done crochet figures as a business, their books would have been filled a month ago, 2 months ago at the time that this was requested. So I did have a wee chuckle to myself thinking, is she serious? She's not asking on the 2nd or 3rd of December if somebody can make something in time for Christmas. So I asked a few more questions, and then I found out that this was the only thing her wee girl wanted for Christmas. She didn't want something unrealistic like a pony or an excessive amount of clothes or toys or whatever. She didn't want any of that. She just wanted a crochet Monty Mole. Maybe not necessarily like pinpointed as crochet. She may have just wanted like a Monty Mole plushie, but she just wanted this one thing, and that was it. So her mum was desperate to find somebody or somewhere that could help her. So when I found that out, I didn't laugh anymore. But I was still a wee bit like, does she realise the amount of time? Focus. Does she realise the amount of time it takes to crochet something from scratch? So, decided to take on the commission. Gave myself a slightly unrealistic target of trying to get it done within a week. Actually less than that, considering I needed to get the wool and then I ran out of stuffing and blah blah blah. Anyway, I got them done in a week. So this is Monty Mole. I got a new camera and the focus is not brilliant. So this is Monty Mole, who is a character from Super Mario Brothers. And if you Google Monty Mole, you'll find that he does come out in a slightly lighter brown, but I couldn't find that kind of brown. And given my time frame, I couldn't wait to order something online. I had to get something when I was there and then in the shop. So I got this wee guy. Well, I got this yarn. And the white yarn as well. And I had the black already. I tried to find a pattern online, and I couldn't actually find a pattern. There was one on Ravelry, technically, but the pattern had been removed and there was only projects left that other people had made when the pattern was still live. So I made this guy up from scratch. This is like the 3rd time I tried to make the body, and this is the one I'm happy with. And he has a wee tail. and I have given him a wee nose and the eyes and his belly and his wee feet. The only thing he doesn't have are claws and a wee pad on his hands, just because it's so small. And he is meant to have teeth, but I couldn't really be bothered with the felt, if I'm being completely honest, and again the pads are just too small. So I don't know how young the kid is, but I really didn't want to risk it. I try and make sure everything is sewn on super, super well so that you could tug this and nothing will come off. But I still didn't really want to take the risk when it came to a child, because like I said, I have no idea how old she is. But yeah, I'm so over the moon with how this guy turned out. Because like I said, I didn't have a pattern. I made him up as I went along. I was getting a bit stressed because it got to... So today is Thursday the 12th. Last night I ripped out the body that I had and remade the body. And then I still had to sew all the pieces together and make the pads and do the facial eyebrows and the nose. Then I still had to make the tail, and I was just stressing that I had given myself a really unrealistic time frame. But turns out I had a perfectly good amount of time to get it done. Either that or I just work really well when I have a tight deadline. But I don't normally take commissions like this, but when I found out it was the only thing this little girl wanted for Christmas, I couldn't say no. Now back to Kirsty in the future. Yeah, it's focused. I'll get used to this focus eventually. So, on to works in progress. I have 3 works in progress that I have brought in with me. Some of them haven't received a huge amount of love, some of them have. So my first one I'm going to show off is my granny rectangle blanket. It's technically a rectangle, but it does look like just a square. I've put on... Since the last time I picked it up, I've put on at least 4 or 5 rounds. And this is the blanket that I originally had quite a sizable amount on, and then I ripped it out because I just wasn't happy with it. And I'm actually really enjoying how the colours are striping out. These are all opal 20 gram mini balls, which were part of the advent calendar I had 3 years ago now. They don't do that advent calendar anymore, which is a real shame, because I know a lot of people would love to get their hands on it. But yeah, I just want to show off my stitch marker. This is a stitch marker by the Little Bush Baby Makes. This was part of a collaboration she and I done for Perth Festival of Yarn 2019. But yeah, still got a fair amount to go until I'm at the size it was. Which is a real shame, but I ripped it out for a reason and I don't regret it. I just forgot how long it takes to do a round on a granny stripe, granny square blanket, and it's nowhere near the size it was, and I'm already complaining. So, but it's going to be good when it's done. So that's one project. I actually have more whips than I've brought in with me, but these are the only whips I've actually made some progress on. And I can get rid of this bag now. Okay, I'll show off the smaller one. So I only have 2 other whips to show off and talk about. And I don't know how I feel about these, and I might end up ripping them out, which will be a real shame, but I don't know, there's just something about it. Unless I have a pattern written down or I have a really clear idea of a design that I want to do, I get a wee bit iffy about a pattern or a project. So I decided that I wanted to make fingerless mittens for going to New York in February, because it's going to be cold. It's going to be really, really cold. And so I started. They look very, very long, but this is the ribbing here. So this portion right here, that is the ribbing. And the reason I've done it so long is because I wanted the opportunity that I could roll them down to be shorter, or I could pull them up to give me more warmth, so I could tuck them in like that. So that if I needed to, I could like really tuck my fingers in and keep them warm. I put too many stitches on waste yarn for the thumb, so it's a bit baggy here. Might rip the ribbing, might rip the cast off, and extend the ribbing on the thumb a wee bit more. But I don't know. I'm working some decreases into the body of the hand so that I can decrease down, because the width of my hand is a lot bigger than my wrist itself. What did I just say? The circumference of my hand is a lot wider than that of my wrist, so I want to decrease down and then increase for my arm. So that's the first one I've got, and then the second one's not quite at that length, but it is at the point where I could rip back just to that orange line just there, which is my scrap yarn for the thumb, and I might take 2 stitches off so that the thumb isn't as baggy on the second one. But I could also just rip back and fix the thumb on this one before I go any further. But what I've found with the yarn, and it's a good thing that I have all the dyeing supplies, is that this colour has not been fixed completely, so there's a lot of transfer on my hands when I'm knitting it. My thumbs and my fingers are being turned blue, so when these are done I'm going to be putting them in a citric acid bath and trying to set the colour a lot more, because what I don't want to do is be walking around New York taking these mittens on and off only to have my hands be turned completely blue. So I will certainly be looking to set the colour, or at least try to set it a little bit more than it was when it was originally dyed. I didn't dye the yarn, by the way. So yeah, probably, to be fair, I probably will rip it out because that thumb's just too wide and it is going to annoy me at that width. But on this one, unlike the other mittens I did pick up extra stitches inside the thumb as well, so that it doesn't help with the width of them. And I wish I hadn't done 1x1 ribbing at the top, because that means I'm going to have to do 1x1 ribbing at the other side. I was following a pattern, but then it turned out that the pattern I had been following was not finger to elbow, it was elbow to finger. So I've been following the wrong instructions. So I'm now just going to wing it from this point onwards, and I could kind of flip it, but I'm just completely, like they said put 19 stitches on waste yarn. I put 16 on and it's too wide, so I can only imagine what would happen if I put 19 on, and I'm doing the exact needle size they've called for with the exact weight of yarn they've called for as well. So unless they had a lot tighter of a gauge, because this didn't give a gauge swatch, then I'm certainly not going to be following this pattern for much longer. Which is a shame, because I find it so much easier sometimes to just work from a pattern rather than make it up on the go. Because like I say, I either have to have a really clear idea of the design in my head, if not have it started to like sketched down, written out, or I just need to work from a pattern. So we'll see how they go. At the moment I'm not dying to work on them. I'm getting a lot of joy on the next project that I'll show you. So these have gone to a bit of the lace side, which is a shame because I only have now 2 months until I fly to New York. Exactly 2 months. So I need to get my finger out and get crafting all the things I said I was going to craft. Okay, so my last project is the one that has been giving me a lot of joy recently. As any regular viewer I say regular viewer, like this has only been affecting me for like the last 2, if not 3 months. For anyone that has watched recently, there we go. I lost my crafting mojo for quite a while, but I found that working on this didn't bring it back, but it certainly helped, and that is my northeasterly blanket. So I've only got one stripe so far. Excuse me. I only have one stripe so far, and this one seemed to follow kind of like purples and greens, which is not going to keep happening for the rest of this project. It's going to be whatever colour comes to hand. And I picked it up yesterday, like last night. I finished work at 4 o'clock yesterday, and about 5 o'clock my mum told me one of my favourite films was on the TV. So I got about this much done to here from, I'd say about 5:30, 6 o'clock up until I went to bed about 10:30, which is a good amount in my eyes. It's not loads, I'm not a super fast knitter, but from this stitch marker down here up to here, I still think it's quite a lot for someone that still isn't in the biggest knitting mood. So I'm almost at the point where this would be a good length for the bed, without really stretching it, with just laying it down. I think this is a good length for the bed. I'm not going breadth-wise or width-wise, I'm going length, and I'm basing it on my partner's king size. I only have a double. So I want it to be the length of his king size, because when we move in, we'll be taking his bed. So it's almost at the length I want it. I think I need to add in maybe like one more colour, and then it definitely will be at the length I want it. And then I'll need to reread the pattern, because I haven't read past literally making the first column to figure out what I'm going to do to get the next column, and then the next one, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm loving just kind of reaching into my bag and pulling out whatever mini comes to mind. But on this column, like I said, for this column, for some reason I gravitated toward purples and greens, or purpley reds and greens. So I don't know. I might pull out all my minis and then kind of put them in piles of 2 colours and see if I could maybe repeat that every other column. Not purples and greens, but like, say like orange and blue or something. I don't know, I'm not good with colour combinations. But yeah, it's like a scarf. It's not long enough to be a scarf. Okay, hang on. Ta-da! But yeah, that is all my projects. So 4 finished projects, 2 of which you have not seen, and then 3 works in progress. I don't think it's too bad, but I do have, I think it's like 10 works in progress I still have on the needles, and I'm certainly not going to get most of them finished for the end of the year, because I think it's 4 of which are blankets. So I've got my granny square and my northeasterly, and I also have I have another crochet one which is meant for like eating up stash. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And I have a mitered square blanket that my mum started, and then I passed it on because she decided she didn't want it anymore. So I haven't worked on that at all this year. I haven't worked on the crochet blanket for a long time. I don't know if I started it this year or not. My memory is terrible. If you're a regular viewer, you might realise that. But yeah, next year I make all these big grand ideas in my head, and then saying them out loud just kind of makes me feel like I have to be more, I have to actually do it. But I want to be the person that records their projects, so that I can look back and be like, oh, I made that this year, and I made that this year. So like, I'm super glad I can say off the top of my head I made finished my Sunset Highway. I made 2. Oh, can't remember the pattern. What's the pattern? Dum da dum da. Amuse yourselves. Ravelry. Library? Let's see. I need to scroll a lot because of Deborah's Cal next year where you use up patterns you have. I've kind of gone a little bit crazy with adding things to adding everything to adding new patterns to my Ravelry library. I went a bit crazy. Moments. That's no. It's the sweater that, or it's the t-shirt that the girl who designed the Northeasterly blanket, I want to say Alexandra, but I know she has recently announced that she's changed her name. No, it's not coming up. Maybe that's why I'm in the recently added. It won't actually show me everything. Seriously guys, amuse yourself. I might fast forward this bit. Right, come on phone. Speed up. Okay, V-neck magpie. Melissa Alexander Lomas. So I'm happy that I finished my Sunset Highway. I made 2 V-neck magpies. I made countless pairs of socks for myself and my mum. I don't think I knit many hats this year. Done a couple shawls, so I done my changes shawl. What else? Oh, I done the burst into bloom shawl. I went to start the nurtured sweater, but that did not go well because I didn't have the right amount of yarn. I did start a worsted weight boxy, which is not finished because I'm contemplating ripping the entire thing out. Might do a striped one just to get the right, because I've sized down because I don't have the right yarn for the apparent one that I should be making for my size, even though they're meant to be boxy. But yeah, I want to be able to look back at the end of 2020 to say, right, this is everything I made. And I think because I'm doing the Stash Bust 2020, or the 2020 Stash Bust, that will help because I'll be recording the amount of yarn I'm using. I'm watching the time because I don't know on this recorder, it came up saying I had 29 minutes to record. And I don't know if that's because, yeah, my camera's blinking red. This is going to be fun. But yeah, at the end of 2020 I want to be able to look back and see what I've made. And I'm hoping that the 2020 Stash Bust will help me with that because I'll be recording how much yarn I use. So I might become better with Ravelry and start putting my projects on there. I'm going to make no promises, but we'll see. I can only say that I want to try to be better, and that's it. So because my camera is flashing red, I am going to wrap things up, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that has been with me since either when I started this podcast or on the journey up to this point. And for any new viewers, hi! And I hope you all have a really good end to the year. Happy Yule, Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate it this time of year, I hope you're having a lovely time. It's not always the best time of year for people. I personally don't feel very Christmassy at all, and today is Christmas. So yeah, but thank you so much for sticking with me or being with me up to this point. I hope you'll come and join us in the 2020 Stash Bust. And I hope you will maybe look into Deborah's podcast as well to check out her cowls for next year. She is running some superb cowls, but even if you're not into that, just using up stuff that you have had in your library up until the end of this year as well is going to be really, really good. So until then, I will see you all in 2020. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Next stop, Edinburgh Park Central.
She used to get with most of us.